If you're a Christian woman who feels drawn to make money from home, then you probably noticed something about the online business world that feels a little off. Most of the advice that you see encourages a pace of life that feels relentless. Constant posting, constant launching, constant pressure to sell more and move faster. And while those strategies might work for some people, they can create quite a lot of tension for women who want their work to honor their faith, their family rhythms, and the other priorities that God has given them. Because you may genuinely want to build something meaningful, and you may want to use your gifts, contribute financially, or create a little more flexibility for your family. But you also don't want a business that constantly pulls you away from the life that you're trying to build. So the question becomes, is there a way to make money from home that is actually sustainable, both financially, physically, and spiritually? Now, after years of experimenting with different kinds of business models and honestly trying quite a few strategies that did not fit the life that I wanted to live, I eventually realized something important. The businesses that become sustainable over time are rarely built around constant launches or one-off sales. Instead, they tend to be built around serving the same group of people over time, walking with them as they learn, as they grow and make progress. And when a business is structured that way, something interesting happens. Your clients receive the ongoing guidance and encouragement that helps them to keep moving forward, and your income becomes far more stable because you are no longer starting from zero every month. So in this video, I want to show you a different way of thinking about making money from home. A calmer and steadier model that allows you to build something meaningful and to serve people well and to grow a business that supports your life rather than constantly competing with it. Now, one of the things that I began to notice as I explored different ways of building an online business is that many of the most visible models are designed around speed. They assume that you can create quickly, launch frequently, promote constantly, and keep producing new things in order to stay profitable. Now, for some people, that pace can work. But for many Christian women, it quietly creates a lot of pressure because when your income depends on one-off sales or periodic launches, then every month begins with the same question: where will the next customers come from? And that uncertainty naturally pushes you towards more urgency, more marketing, more promotions, more pressure to keep everything moving quickly. And even if you begin with the intention of just pushing hard for a season, the structure of the business itself often keeps that pressure going far longer than expected. Now, another path many women explore is building a service-based business where income is tied directly to the hours worked. And while services can be meaningful work, they also place a natural ceiling on growth because your income is still limited by the amount of time that you are able or willing to give. So over time, many women find themselves caught between two difficult options. They can keep chasing new customers every month through launches and promotions, or they can continue trading time for money in a way that never really becomes scalable. Now, neither of those paths tend to create the kind of peaceful, sustainable business that many Christian women are actually hoping for. So if those common models tend to create this kind of pressure, the natural question then becomes, what actually works instead? Instead of constantly chasing new customers, you build a business by continuing to support the same people over time. And when you structure a business that way, everything about the rhythm of the work begins to change. I still remember the moment this shift really clicked for me, because it was the first time that my business stopped feeling like a cycle of constant pressure and started feeling like something steady that I could actually build on. Now, in practical terms, this often means creating an environment where your clients remain connected to you and the resources that you provide, rather than experiencing your business as a single transaction that ends once the purchase is complete. Now, sometimes that environment takes the form of a membership or a subscription. Sometimes it's a support community. Sometimes it's an ongoing learning space where people continue implementing what they're learning. But the structure itself isn't really the most important part. What matters is actually the shift in mindset. Because instead of thinking in terms of selling isolated products, you begin thinking in terms of walking with people through a process. And this approach fits remarkably well with the world that we're living in now, because information is no longer scarce. Almost anything someone wants to learn can be found on YouTube, through Google, or increasingly through AI tools that can summarize entire topics in seconds. What people struggle with today is not access to information. What they struggle with is applying that information consistently in the middle of real life. They struggle with staying motivated when progress feels slow. And they struggle with knowing whether they are focusing on the right things. And they struggle with the quiet discouragement that comes when they try to figure out everything on their own. A business built around ongoing guidance helps solve these problems in a much more meaningful way. Now, one of the reasons I've come to appreciate this model so much is that it creates a very different experience for the people that you are serving. Many of us have purchased courses or resources at some point with every intention of working through them, only to discover that once life becomes busy again, the material quietly sits unfinished on a hard drive somewhere. Not because the information wasn't valuable, but because real change rarely comes from information alone. It requires encouragement when progress feels slow, clarification when something doesn't quite make sense, and sometimes simply the reassurance that you are moving in the right direction. When someone purchases a one-off product, they often receive the knowledge but not the support that helps them translate that knowledge into real progress. But when people remain connected to the environment where they're learning, something different happens. They can ask questions when they encounter obstacles. They can see how others are approaching similar challenges. And they can receive guidance that helps them adapt what they are learning to their own circumstances. So instead of feeling as though they've been handed a set of instructions and left to figure the rest out on their own, they experience something closer to a shared journey. And that kind of support makes persistence much easier. And what many women discover when they begin structuring a business this way is how much calmer it feels to run. Many business models quietly reset the pressure every single month. You must generate new interest, find new customers, and create new reasons for people to buy. But when people continue learning and growing within the environment that you've created, something important changes. Because instead of constantly replacing the customers that you've already served, you're continuing to work with people who already trust you and are still moving forward. Now, over time, this creates a much more stable foundation. Rather than living from launch to launch, you can focus on improving the resources that you've already created, responding to the real questions that your clients are asking, and guiding them forward at a pace that feels sustainable. And when income becomes more predictable, you are able to make decisions with greater peace rather than urgency. You can protect your family rhythms. You can serve people more thoughtfully. And you can build something gradually in a way that honors both your calling and your capacity. Now, when people first hear about building a business around ongoing support, the natural question becomes, what would this actually look like to build? And the good news is that it doesn't require starting with a huge platform or a complicated program. In fact, the most sustainable businesses often begin very simply. They start with clarity about who they want to serve and what kind of progress they want to help that person make. And from there, the focus becomes creating a small, focused offer that helps that person take a meaningful step forward. Now, as people begin engaging with that offer, something very helpful happens. You start to see where they get stuck. You notice the questions that keep appearing. You begin to understand what kind of support would make their journey easier. And instead of creating disconnected products to address those needs separately, you gradually shape an environment where that support can continue over time. Now, sometimes that includes new resources, sometimes it'll be guidance, or sometimes it'll be community. But the key idea is that the business grows alongside the people that you are serving rather than trying to predict everything perfectly in advance. Now, that allows you to build something steadily without rushing or overwhelming yourself. Now, if you've been looking for ways to make money from home and you've been feeling discouraged by the pace that online business often seems to demand, it may simply be that the models you've been seeing were never designed to fit the kind of life that you want to build. A business that grows steadily, serves people well, and supports the priorities that God has given you is not only possible, it's often the kind of business that lasts. And if you would like help building a business using this kind of model, that's exactly what I teach inside my Plan to Profit system. It is a simple step-by-step training where I walk you through how to take one idea and turn it into a sustainable online business that can grow gradually without requiring constant hustle. Now, if this approach resonates with you, I would encourage you to take a look at that Plan to Profit system using the link below and see if it feels like the right next step for you. And whether you explore that or not, I hope that this conversation encourages you that building a business that fits your life rather than competing with it is not only possible, it is often the wiser path.